Today we're going to do something a little bit different than our weekly study because it's Passover season, the Passover week. And we don't have a regular Torah portion until next week. So there's actually a couple things. I prayed about it. I prayed about taking a break today and not doing something today. But then Abba did say he wanted us to cover Exodus 32 and 33. So we are going to cover Exodus 32 and 33. And what we're going to cover is this understanding of the shadow pictures and how that relates to our spiritual progress. And also understanding that there's a difference between being saved and entering the wilderness and being in covenant and like really understanding the covenant and entering the land. Okay. Those are two different moments in time. Okay. Being saved and entering the wilderness is not the goal. It's not the end goal. Okay. So we are saved by grace through faith. And then we go on this journey. And in this journey, we walk through the wilderness. And in that walking through the wilderness, we're learning how to enter the land. Okay. So the goal is not to stay in the wilderness, it's to enter the land. Okay. And so I want to go through that process today because it is a very important understanding, because much of the church wants to stay in the wilderness. They want to just stay in the wilderness, doing their wilderness stuff. That's not the goal. The goal was never to stay in the wilderness. The goal was to enter the land. Okay. A metaphorical land if you want, or real land if you want, whatever that means to you. Yes, out of Egypt, and then Egypt out of you. Okay, so there's a shadow picture step, and there's a shadow picture walk in this process, and we have to go through the entire shadow picture so that we can understand that when we are saved by grace, we're supposed to be learning and walking towards an end goal. And when we understand the fullness of the end goal, that how we can live in the land together in harmony. And in harmony with Yah, that's when the milk and honey, right? The land of milk and honey arrives when we're at that point. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's start with prayer, though, to begin. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for being with us today. I thank you for drawing us near to you, to your word. I just praise you, Father, that you've always been with us all along this journey through this wilderness, and you're going to help us to understand even deeper how to enter your land. Father, I just pray that you just bless everyone on this broadcast today. I pray that you cover their hearts and minds and just cover them with your grace and your mercy. Open their ears and open their eyes so that they may hear and see the wonderful things that are written in the word. Let us not seek our own ways, our own theologies, but let us uncover what your word has to say line by line. And I pray, Father, that you give us brand new revelations, that you give us brand new understandings, and that you just direct us. You direct our steps. You make our steps wide underneath us. Anyone who's dealing with anxiety, depression, mental torment, Father, I just pray that you will heal that now, that you'll rebuke that off of them now. I pray that you'll set your hedge of protection around your people. I pray that you will give them peace. I pray that you will just give them peace and healing in every way that they need it. And I pray, Father, that you just calm all of our hearts today in these times when we're looking at wars and rumors of wars and all the evil going on in the world. I just pray that you protect our family and loved ones. And I pray, Father, that you give us the peace that surpasses all understanding, that we know that you are going to conquer the giants and we are going to enter the land. In Yeshua's mighty name, amen. All right, so let's start with Exodus 32. And we'll just go through a bit of that. I know that if you've been with me for a while, you've already gone through this about a month ago. But we're going to take a different angle and we're going to discuss it for other people as well. So let's go to Exodus 32. So Exodus 32, Moshe went up the mountain. And he was given the tablets, okay? So I think we'll start at Exodus 31. We'll go back a little bit. Yeah, we'll go back a little bit. So Moshe has gone up the mountain for the first time. right? And he's been given the design for the tabernacle, the design on how the tabernacle is going to work. This is how we're going to approach Yehovah. He's been given the pattern, okay? And while he's been given the pattern, there's stuff at the bottom of the mountain going on, okay? And so what's really interesting about the way that this is ordered is you have the pattern, and then you have him reminding Moshe to keep the Sabbath and to tell the people to keep the Sabbath, okay? And then you have the 10 Commandments, okay? So that's the order that it's going in. And what is the picture here? The picture is that Yehovah is giving Moshe the design, right? In our Father, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The heavenly design mirrors the earthly design. Our desire is to bring heaven to earth, okay? And so if he's given us the design and the pattern and the way that things work, we don't want to go and accept or work at or glorify, bring attention to another design. I've gone through this many, many times about how the Vatican has a deception design. It is not the design in the heavens. It is a deceptive design, okay? And there's a lot of these deceptive designs that go out. The New Age movement has deceptive designs. All sorts of other religions have deceptive designs. So we don't want to be religious and looking for different designs. We want to be understanding of his design and bringing his design to earth, okay? That's why we want to remove everything that's not of his design. That's the leaven, okay? When we talk about removing the leaven, we're removing everything that's not his, that he didn't command it, he didn't say it, he didn't give us an expression of it, he didn't show us that. We want to remove it because that's works of man that we are glorifying. If we are spending all of our time on Christmas and Easter, these false designs, these man-made designs, instead of spending the time in his scriptures to learn his design, we are glorifying man. We're not glorifying him, okay? So Exodus 31:12, and Yehovah said to Moshe, you are to speak to the people of Israel and say, above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths. This is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yehovah, Yehovah, sanctify you, okay? This is probably one of the most important verses you can understand, okay? Why did he give you the Sabbaths? Now, Sabbath is not just the weekly Sabbath. Sabbath is also the holiday Sabbath. Somebody's sending witchcraft. Okay, let's just pray against witchcraft. Heavenly Father, I just want to rebuke all witchcraft being sent to me on this broadcast, every witchcraft to cause confusion, every witchcraft to cause lack of clarity. Father, I just bind and rebuke that now in Yeshua's mighty name. I ask that your peace be with us, that you help me with my words, that you help me with my clarity. And I just pray, Father, that if there's anyone on this broadcast that is throwing witchcraft or cursing, that is cursing and sending curses, that you remove them now. In Yeshua's name, amen. That's better. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Exodus 31:12. And Yehovah said to Moshe, you speak to the people of Israel and say, above all, you shall keep my Sabbath. So Sabbath is the weekly Sabbath and also the holidays. So within the holidays, there's Sabbaths within each holiday, okay? Let's just go through them. Passover, the first day of Passover is a Sabbath, okay? The last day of Passover is a Sabbath. Shavuot, which is the day of Pentecost, is a Sabbath day. Yom Kippur is a Sabbath day. The Feast of Trumpets is a Sabbath day. The first day of Sukkot is a Sabbath day. And the last day, the 8th great day of Sukkot, is a Sabbath day. Okay, those are days. They're called high Sabbaths, and you keep them set apart. You keep them holy. You don't work on those days. You can cook and you can bake because they're feast days, but you don't work. You don't do regular work on those days. Okay. So those are also Sabbaths. So what Yehovah is saying to Moshe is, above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths. Why? Why? Because for it is a sign. What's a sign in Hebrew? An oat. Oat in Hebrew, okay? A sign, a pledge, a token. It's a sign. It's your wedding ring. What is a wedding ring? It's a sign that you are married, okay? The Sabbaths, it's the fourth commandment, is keep the Sabbath holy, right? That's your wedding ring. A lot of believers are walking around with no wedding rings on. You know what I'm saying? Okay. It is a sign, an oath, a pledge between me and you throughout your generations. So throughout the generations, that you may know that I, Yehovah, sanctify you. So who sanctifies you? Yehovah. Okay. Not the Catholic Church through the pastor, through the Pope, not your regular Baptist pastor. There's not, I don't sanctify you. Nobody sanctifies you but Yehovah. And when you keep his Sabbaths, that is a sign, that is an understanding between you and him, that you understand that he sanctifies you. Now, if you start to learn about the feast days and you learn about the Sabbaths, you will notice that they do sanctify you. They teach you about how he's healing you, how he's sanctifying you. When we go this season and we remove all the leaven, when we remove all the leaven in the season, we're learning and we're being sanctified. Every single year that you do that, you're being sanctified, right? It's not the church that sanctifies you. It's him that sanctifies you. It's his word that sanctifies you. John 17:17. Let's go there. I can. John 17:17. So these are red letters, okay? Meaning Yeshua spoke these letters, okay? I have given them your word, given us your word, the Father's word. And the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. So those who reject his word hate him, okay? I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in your truth. Your word is truth. Sanctify them in your truth. Your word is truth. Okay? As you have sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sake, I consecrate myself, so that they also may be sanctified in truth. His word is truth. Sanctify them in your word. Whose word? The Heavenly Father's word. Your word is truth, okay? Back to Exodus 31. Above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I, Yehovah, sanctify you. Okay? You shall keep the Sabbath because it is holy for you. Everyone who profanes it shall be put to death. Whoever does any work on it, that soul shall be cut off from his people. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, holy unto Yehovah. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death. Therefore, the people of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath throughout their generations as a covenant forever. It is a sign forever between me and the people of Israel, that in 6 days Yehovah made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. So he's referring back, he's pointing back to Genesis, okay? So Genesis is before, and this moment here is before there was any commandments that came down from Sinai, okay? None of the commandments, there's no temple yet, there's no tabernacle yet. He's establishing the Sabbath before any of that, okay? It's the number one thing, okay? And he's also pointing back to Genesis to make sure that you understand fully that this has been a forever thing, okay? Now, we're not going to get into who Israel is today, but Israel means, in Hebrew, one who wrestles, who strives with Yah. So if you strive with the Heavenly Father, and you strive and you wrestle with him, and you want to know his truth, right? And you want to be sanctified, you're likely Israel, right? Okay. Spiritual Israel, okay? When we go into the New Testament, how we're grafted in and all that, but we're not doing that lesson today. We're doing a different lesson today. Exodus 31:18. And he gave to Moshe, when he had finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, the 2 tablets of the testimony, tablets of stone written with the finger of God. Okay. So if something is written with the finger of God, do you want to do away with one of those commands or any of those commands? No. It's written with the finger of God. Now, if you go and look up the 10 commandments of the Catholic Church versus the 10 commandments that are actually written in scripture, you will notice that they are different. Okay. Just Google it. It'll pop up right away. They are different. The Catholic Church has changed the Sabbath day. Okay. And the Protestant daughters, right? John 17:17. So the Catholic Church has changed the Sabbath day, as well as the Protestant daughters of the Catholic Church has changed the Sabbath day. They have removed the do not worship idols command, right? And they have switched everything around, right? So just go Google it. It'll pop up right away. So if something is written by the finger of God, there is no man on earth. I don't care if you want to call him Pope, call no man father, right? Whatever that man is doing and saying does not matter. It matters what the finger of God says, right? Exodus 32. When the people saw that Moshe delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves up together, and Aaron said to him, "Make us gods who shall go before us." Gathered together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods that shall go before us. And for this Moshe, the man who brought us up out of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." So Aaron said to him, "Take off the rings of gold in the ears of your wives, sons, and daughters, and bring them to me." So they've removed all their jewelry, okay? Note that they've already removed their jewelry. So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a feast to Jehovah." So when they're doing this feast with the golden calf, he is proclaiming that it is a feast to Jehovah. Okay, it is a feast to the Lord. That is an error. They are making an error. Proclaiming a feast that is not a feast is an error. Okay, so saying that Christmas is a feast to the Lord or Easter is a feast to the Lord because he knows your heart is an error. You're making a grave error. Okay, so go back. What did he say right before this? You shall keep my Sabbaths above all, above all, above all. You shall keep my Sabbaths. Okay, that's what Moshe is hearing from Jehovah, above all. And Jehovah spoke to Moshe direct. Above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths as a sign. Okay, what's happening down at the bottom of the mountain? So who's at the bottom of the mountain in life right now? Who's at the bottom of the mountain in life right now? The Xmas people, the Easter people, the false feast people, the false Sabbath day people. They're hanging out at the bottom of the mountain, making feast to the Lord, golden calves. When Moshe is at the top, Yeshua is at the top of the mountain, right? And he's getting the commandments at the top of the mountain, okay? That's where the covenant is happening. At the bottom of the mountain, the people are building golden calves, okay? It's the same picture. It's happening today. So tomorrow shall be a feast to Jehovah. This is Aaron's error. He's making this error. And they rose up early the next day, early in the morning, the next day, and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. So they were bringing offerings to this false feast of Jehovah. And the people sat down to eat, and they rose up and drink, and they rose up to play. And Jehovah said to Moshe, "Go down, for your people whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves." It's the same shadow picture. It's happening today. He brought them out of Egypt. He saved them by grace through faith out of Egypt, and then they've gone and corrupted themselves, okay? They have turned aside quickly out of the way that I commanded them. They have made for themselves a golden calf and have worshipped to it and sacrificed to it and said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." And Jehovah said to Moshe, "I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Therefore, let me alone that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them in order that I may make a great nation out of you. But Moshe implored to Jehovah his Elohim and said, O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, with the evil intent did he bring them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your burning anger and relent from this disaster against your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your offspring as the stars of the heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give you to your offspring, and they shall inherit it forever. And Jehovah relented from the disaster that he had spoken of bringing on to his people. Then Moshe turned and went down the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand. Tablets that were written on both sides, on the front and the back, they were written. So Moshe intercedes for the people. There's this picture of intercession for the people throughout the scripture. Abraham interceded for Lot. He was ready to destroy Sodom with Lot in it. And Abraham interceded and said, will you not save it if there's 8, and so far and so forth. So Abraham interceded for Lot. Moshe intercedes for the people. You see Joshua interceding for the people. And of course, David goes on and on. Yeshua intercedes for us. It's the same picture. Yeshua has interceded for us, and he keeps the wrath off of us because we are also stiff-necked people, right? The tablets were the work of God, Elohim, and the writing of Elohim, engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moshe, there is a noise of war in the camp. But then he said, it is not the sound of shouting for victory or the sound of cry or defeat, but the sound of singing that I hear. And as soon as he came near the camp, he saw the calf and the dancing. Moshe's anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hand and broke them on the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf that they had made and burned it with fire, and ground the powder and scattered it on the water and made the people of Israel drink it. I've gone through this before, but I'll just take note of it again for anyone who's new here. What Moshe is doing here with the calf is a picture. It's a shadow picture of the test for the adulterous bride, okay? Now, if we go through the test for the adulterous bride, I think you'll find that in Numbers, I want to say 17. Numbers 5. So you'll find that in Numbers 5. I'm not going to read it all now because we have a lot to go through today. But if you want to dive into that, it's Numbers 5. Okay. So what Moshe is doing here is a shadow picture of the test for the adulterous bride. You will also see the test for the adulterous bride as a prophetic picture in the prophecy books. You'll see it, bitter waters. Okay, so that picture of bitter waters going out is the test. It's a picture of the test for the adulterous bride. Okay, so this is kind of, I believe this is the first instance we have this test going out. So he took the calf they had made and burned it with fire and ground it to powder and scattered it on the water and made the people of Israel drink it, bitter waters, right? And Moshe said to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you have brought such a great sin upon them? And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord burn hot. You know the people, and they are set on evil. For they said to me, let us make gods who shall go before us. And for this, Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So I said to them, let any who has gold take it off. And so they gave it to me and threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. Out popped this calf. Oops. This moment reminds me of the garden moment when Adam's like, it was the woman that did it, right? Adam's like, the woman gave it to me and I accidentally ate it. It's the woman's fault. It's the fault of the woman that you gave me. Aaron's doing the exact same thing. He's not taking responsibility. He's not taking ownership of his part in it. He's blaming the people, right? I threw it in the fire and out popped this calf. Sure, Aaron, that's what happened. And then Moshe saw the people had broken loose, for Aaron let them break loose to the derision of their enemies. Then Moshe stood at the gate of the camp and said, who is on Jehovah's side? Come to me. And the sons of Levi gathered all around him. And he said to them, thus says Jehovah, the God of Israel, Elohim of Israel, put on your sword and on your side, each of you go to and fro, and from the gates throughout the camp, and each of you kill his brother and his companion and his neighbor. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moshe. And on that day, 300 men of the people fell. And Moshe said, today you have been ordained for the service of Jehovah. Let each one at the cost of his son and his brother, let each one at the cost of his son and of his brother, that he might bestow blessing upon you this day. Okay. So the sons of Levi's are the ones who were there. They were going to serve Jehovah no matter what. Okay. They're on Jehovah's side. When Joshua says, choose this day who you will serve, we all have that choice. Are we going to serve Jehovah, or are we going to serve all of these other masters, right? Are we going to serve the Pope as a master? Are we going to serve our Baptist doctrine as a master? Are we going to serve whatever Protestant denomination? Is that our master, or are we serving Jehovah? Are we seeking his truth in all things? Are we seeking his word in all things? Or are we going to serve man, right? Or other masters? So Levi is a very interesting word, okay? Levi means to join to. It means to be joined to. Okay. I want to take you, because remember we're talking about the Sabbaths. Okay. Above all, keep my Sabbaths. So I want to connect this for you, because this is where we're going to see Levi. We're going to see who joins themselves to Jehovah. Let's go to Isaiah 56. Okay. Isaiah 56. Thus says Jehovah, keep justice and do righteousness, for soon my salvation, Yeshua, will come, and my righteousness will be revealed. Blessed is the man who does this. Blessed is the man who holds it fast, chazak. So holds it, chazak, is a warfare word. It's a word of, when the people were about to go into battle, they'd be like, Hazak. And that would be, it means to be strong, to grow in strength, to hold strong, to hold fast. Okay. It's one of my favorite Hebrew words. It's a going into battle word. Okay. So blessed is the man who does this, for the son of man who holds it fast, who keeps my Sabbath, not profaning it, and keeps his hand from doing any evil. Let that not the foreigner, those of the nations who have joined Lawa. Okay. So the name Levi comes from this root Lawa in Hebrew, which means to join. So those who have joined themselves, who have levied themselves unto Jehovah. Okay. So let not the foreigner who has Lawa joined himself to Jehovah say, Jehovah will surely separate me from his people. So all those Christians who say that they are separate from Israel, they are separate from Jehovah's people, they are going against scripture when they say that. They are denying what scripture says when they say that. You're not separated from his people. You are Levite, you're Lawad, joined into his people. So if you're not natural born Israel, you're joined in to Israel. Okay. Let not the foreigners say. Don't let the foreigners say that. They're not supposed to say that. Okay. If they call themselves Gentiles, that means that they have separated themselves from Jehovah's people. That's what it means. So they want to stay separate from Jehovah's people and not be a part of Jehovah's people. That's what they're telling you when they want to stay Gentiles. Okay. They're supposed to join in, right? Let not the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. You're not a dry tree. You're grafted into the root of Jesse. Jesse is from the line of David. Jesse is Judah. Okay. You're grafted in. For thus says Jehovah, to the eunuchs who keep my Sabbaths, who choose the things that please me and hold fast to my covenant. Okay, so why is he using eunuch as a metaphor here? Eunuchs were not allowed in the temple, okay, because they had been altered. Okay, so a eunuch is somebody who is in service to the king, but they had been altered, you know what I'm saying, castrated. So because they were castrated and they were in service to the king, they were not able to enter the temple ground. Okay, so what is he saying? Even the eunuchs are not dry trees. They can enter his kingdom. They can enter in with him. They can join themselves to him. Anyone, no matter what state you are in, you can join yourself in. You can be grafted in. Okay, so to the eunuchs, those who normally could not be joined in and join into whatever's going on in the temple, who keep my Sabbaths, who choose the things that please me and hold fast, hazak, hold fast, hazak to my covenant, I will give in my house and within my walls a monument and a name better than sons and daughters. Better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. And the foreigners who Levi themselves to Jehovah, to minister to him, to love the name of Jehovah, and to be his servants. Everyone who keeps the Sabbath and does not profane it and holds fast, hazak, to my covenant, barit. Okay. Foreigners. We got foreigners here. They're joining themselves to Jehovah. They're Leviing themselves to Jehovah. How are we to minister to Jehovah? He tells us how to minister to him, serve him. Minister, sharat, to serve him. To minister means to serve him. Can a woman be a minister? Can a woman serve Jehovah? Did women serve Yeshua? Did women serve Yeshua? Can a woman serve Jehovah? Can a woman be a minister? Can a woman be a minister? Can a woman serve? Okay, just putting that out there. Yes, women can serve and minister. They're not supposed to usurp authority if there's a man in leadership, right? If they have a husband, they don't usurp authority over him or try to rule over men, but they can minister. They can minister to people. They can serve people. You can serve, you guys. Women, don't be afraid to serve people. It's okay. To minister to him and to love the name of Jehovah. So how do you minister and love Jehovah and be his servants? He tells you in the next line, everyone who keeps the Sabbath and does not profane it and holds fast to my covenant. Now, where is he going to bring these people? These I will bring to my holy mountain. I will make them joyful in my house of prayer. Okay. So Moshe is on top of Mount Sinai. He's being told, keep the 10 commandments, keep the Sabbath, do all this stuff, just obey me. I want obedience, okay? Not sacrifice, I want obedience, okay? That's what Moshe is hearing at the top of the mountain. The people down at the bottom of the mountain are making golden calves. They're making feast days unto Jehovah that have nothing to do with what Jehovah has asked them to do, what Jehovah has told them to do, what Jehovah has given them to do. They're just doing their own thing. And they're doing their own thing modeled after the pagan ways, okay? That's what they're doing at the bottom of the mountain. Now, this is Mount Zion we're talking about here, okay? So who is he bringing up to the top of Mount Zion? Everyone who keeps the Sabbath and does not profane it and holds fast to my covenant, these will bring to my holy mountain and make joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. Did Jehovah accept the burnt offerings and the sacrifices made at the bottom of the mountain that were made in the image of the golden calf? He did not. He did not accept those offerings and sacrifices because they were a false image. Because people were ignoring what he asked them to do, and they were making the false image instead, putting in all their time and effort to make burnt offerings and sacrifices in false images, right? Okay. So are you going to take all your time and effort and build up false images? Or are you going to take all your time and effort and build up the real images and give him the glory? When we're building up our false images, the images that come from man, the images that come from whatever false church that you grew up in or whatever, you are glorifying man. You're not glorifying him. You're not glorifying his words. You're doing the works of man. You're not doing his works. His works are found in his word, right? He gives us the works that we're supposed to do. Okay. So, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Adonai Yehovah, who gathers the outcasts of Israel, declares, I will yet gather others to him besides those are already gathered. So he gathers the outcasts of Israel, and then he's going to gather yet others to him. So not just those who were born, natural born Israel, but also the others. Okay, they're all going to be gathered. Okay, so this is more, this is more of the, he's, if we keep reading, he's talking back to the golden calf incident. Okay, so Isaiah 56:9, all the beasts of the field come to devour, all you beasts in the field. His watchmen are blind, they are without knowledge. They are all silent dogs. They cannot bark. Where else do we see silent dogs? We see silent dogs in Exodus when the people are leaving Egypt. When the people are leaving Egypt, the dogs are all silent. They don't bark. Isn't that interesting? So he's calling back to that so that we notice that we're reminded that the silent dogs are still in Egypt. So the watchmen who are actually silent dogs, these are the watchmen without knowledge. They cannot bark. They're dreaming. They're lying down. They're loving to slumber. They need to wake up. Sardis is the church that needs to wake up. Okay. Sleeping Sardis with its sleeping pastors. They are blind without knowledge. They're still in Egypt. They don't realize that they're still in Egypt, but they are still in Egypt. Okay. That's why they're silent dogs. He's likening them to silent dogs. The silent dogs stayed in Egypt. Okay. The dogs have a mighty appetite. They never have enough, but they are shepherds who have no understanding. They have all turned to their own way, each to his own gain, one and all. So those are those pastors that are like buying jets and mega church pastors, right? They have no understanding of the scriptures, right? They're still in Egypt. They're still hanging out in Egypt. Come, they say, let me get wine and let us fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow will be a day like this day, great beyond measure. The righteous man perishes and no one lays it to heart. The devout men are taken away, gathered and collected. Okay, so people tell me all the time that there is no evidence for rapture theology. I don't like to call it rapture, but there is plenty of evidence for rapture theology. So this is one of those moments where this could be evidence for rapture theology. Now, I don't like to preach a theology, but I just point out different things and you guys can decide what you want, okay? The righteous man perishes and no one lays it to heart. The devout men are taken away. So that could be killed or that could be removed. So that word there is asaph, and it means to remove or gathered. It means to gather or remove. Okay? Asaph. So the devout men are asaphed. They're taken away. They're gathered and removed. Well, no one understands. For the righteous man is taken away, asaf, from calamity. He enters into peace. They rest in their beds who walk in their uprightness. Okay? So if you want another example of a potential that's, yeah, you could be killed and taken away, or you could, like Enoch, be taken away. There is examples for that in the scriptures. Okay, guys? So don't let people tell you just because they saw a YouTube video or they saw, don't let people tell you stuff just because they saw somebody else say it. Go through the scriptures yourself. Ask Yah yourself to teach you the scriptures, because there is evidence for people staying and dying. There's evidence for people staying and dying, and there's also evidence for people being taken away. There's both evidence there. Okay, both of those cases can be made, and both of those cases can be made at the same time. Some people, Smyrna, Church of Smyrna, stay. Some people go up to the throne room. Philly, okay? Philly has an open door. Open door leads to the throne room, okay? Smyrna is told, hang on unto death, okay? So there's two churches that were not in the wrong. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were right with Yeshua, but they have two different jobs to do. They have two different outcomes, okay? So yes, both cases exist. Both cases you can find scriptures for, okay? But you who draw near, sons of the sorceress, offspring of the adulterer and the loose woman, who are you mocking? Whom do you open your mouth wide and stick out your tongue? Are you not the children of transgression, the offspring of deceit, who burn with lust among the oaks under every green tree, who slaughter your children in the valleys under the clefts of rocks? Among smooth stones of the valley is your portion. They are your lot. To them you have poured out a drink offering. You've brought them a grain offering. Shall I relent for these things? On a high and lofty mountain you have set your bed, and you've went up there to offer sacrifice. So they've gone up to a false mountain. Behind the door and the doorpost, you have set up your memorial. For deserting me, you have uncovered your bed. Okay, I just want to point this out. Green trees, behind every green tree, they're pouring out, they're going up to high mountains, they're pouring out drink offerings under every green tree, all of that, right? But then the picture is moved to their own households, okay? Behind the door and the doorpost. So what are we supposed to put on our doors and our doorposts? The commandments, okay? Deuteronomy 6. We're supposed to mark our doors with the commandments, and we're supposed to mark our doorposts with the commandments, okay? So that we remember to keep the commandments, okay? And we mark our homes with that, okay? So behind that, these people are setting up memorials. You see the picture, okay? So what do people do at Xmas time? Wreath on their door. Have they ever written the commandments on their door? Probably not. But what they will do is they'll put a wreath on their door, a memorial of what? It's nothing to do with the scriptures. It's a memorial, but it's not a memorial that's in the scriptures. And then they put the memorial in their house. They put the green tree under every green tree. They put that memorial in their house behind their door and their doorposts, okay? Because they've learned from the sleeping dog pastors who have no understanding that that's okay. They've been told by a YouTube video or by a TikTok video that that's okay. So instead of reading the scriptures and learning knowledge, they go ahead and do that, and they put up that memorial in their house. Behind every doorpost and door, you've set up your memorial. For deserting me, you have uncovered your bed. You've gone up to it. You have made it wide. You have made a covenant for yourself with them. You have loved their bed. You have looked on nakedness. You journeyed to the king with oil and multiplied your perfumes. You have sent your envoys far off and went down even to Sheol. You were wearied by the length of your way, but you did not say it is hopeless. You found new life for your strength so that you were not faint. So building up your strength and keeping going on your own accord, okay? Whom did you dread and fear so that you lied? Did you not remember me? Did it not lay to did not lay it to heart? Have I not held my peace even for a long time, and you did not fear me? I will declare your righteousness and deeds, and they will not profit you. When you cry out, let your collection of idols deliver you. The wind will carry them all off, and a breath will take them away. But he who takes refuge in me shall possess the land and shall inherit my holy mountain. Okay, let's go back to Exodus 32. So the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moshe, and they were joined, okay? Because Moshe asked them, who is on Jehovah's side? Come to me, okay? And that's why the sons of Levi were made into the priesthood, okay? Because they understood that they had to be on Jehovah's side no matter what, okay? The next day, so we're Exodus 32:30. The next day, Moshe said to the people, you have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up to Jehovah, and perhaps I can make atonement for you. So what is atonement? Atonement is kafar. It is the price for a life. It is ransom. Atonement is paying the cost for your sins. It's paying the price for your sins. It's not doing commandments for you, okay? It's paying the cost, paying the price. So when someone makes atonement for you, it's understanding that what you have done, there's a cost built into what you have done. All the ways that you have fallen short, there's a cost that needs to be paid to pay it in full and bring you back into relationship with the Most High God, right? And so Moses is a picture of Yeshua here, and Moses is going up to the mountain to see if he can atone for the people and their sins. I want to go quickly, because this is a verse people get wrong all the time. Nailing it to the cross. What was nailed to the cross, you guys? Bible verse. What is nailed to the cross? Colossians 2. Okay, actually, we're going to start at Colossians 2. Okay, we'll have to go to Colossians 2:8. See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit according to what? The law of God? No, according to human tradition. Okay, so what are people being taken captive by? Human tradition. Nowhere does it say the law of God. Okay, see that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit. What is empty deceit? Human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ. For in him the whole fullness of deity deity dwells bodily, and you have been filled in him, who is the head of all rule and authority. In him you were circumcised with a circumcision made without hands by made without hands by putting off the body of the flesh by the circumcision of Yeshua, Christ, okay? So Christ is to circumcise you, circumcise your heart, right? Because the law gets put on your heart, right? So it's the spiritual circumcision. That's that moment of spiritual circumcision. So the human tradition doesn't mean that we don't get circumcised anymore. It doesn't mean that we don't keep the commandments anymore. The human tradition is the things of man. That's your changing the Sabbath to Sunday. That's your false feast, your false Christmas, all of that. That's human traditions, okay? So you have to determine what is a human tradition and what is a command of God, okay? We have to figure out those two different things. And the only way that you can know the difference between those two is to actually read and study the scriptures, right? Putting off the body of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ, having been buried with him in baptism, in which you were also raised with him through faith, and in the powerful working of Jehovah, who raised him from the dead. And you who were dead in your trespasses, what is trespasses? You trespass the law. You are dead because you were trespassing, you were sinning, you were doing all this stuff that was not of the Father, though that you were sinning. Those are your trespasses. Keeping the law is not dead in your trespasses. Keeping sin is dead in your trespasses, right? And the uncircumcision of your flesh wasn't circumcised. You were dead in the uncircumcision of your flesh. You weren't cutting your flesh and living by spirit. You were living by the flesh, okay? God made alive together with him, having forgiven of us all our trespasses, our sins. Sin is lawlessness. He has forgiven our lawlessness. That doesn't mean we continue to walk in lawlessness. It means that he has forgiven our lawlessness, right? By canceling the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands, okay? So what is atonement? Atonement is the canceling of the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. This he set aside, nailing it to the cross. Did he nail the law to the cross? No. Did he nail sin to the cross? No. Did he nail the feasts and festivals that were given to us, the Sabbaths that were given us by Jehovah to the cross? No. What did he nail to the cross? The record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. Because you sinned and you were lawless, and we are all naturally lawless in so many ways. There's even ways we don't even realize we're being lawless, okay? He canceled that record of debt, making atonement for us so that we can approach the heavenly throne, okay? It doesn't mean that that God's holy law is nailed to the cross. Nowhere does it say that. It does not say that. It's the record of debt that we all had that he nailed to the cross to make atonement for us, okay? He dismantled the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame and triumphing over them, okay? By triumphing over them in him, okay? So now we have our dominion back. We did not have our dominion back before. When you see in the New Testament there's a lot of conversations about the apostles are living in fear. They're in fear to sit with the Gentiles. They're in fear to go into the marketplace and eat. They're in fear to do certain things. They didn't have dominion back, you guys, okay? So if they were to pick up a demon, or they were to pick up something and they were to have an open door, where they would have to get clean, go to the temple and deal with it. If they had become unclean, they would have to deal with that in order to get their dominion back, okay? And sometimes they, through the bloodline, would lose their dominion so much that it would cause all sorts of problems, okay? I'll give you an example of this way of thinking and the way that it was, okay? If you had somebody in your family back in that day, and even in Jewish custom today, okay, even in Jewish custom today, if you have somebody in your family who committed suicide, the other people in the family will have a hard time finding wives and husbands and people that will marry them, because they're concerned about that generational curse in the bloodline, okay? They're concerned about that. And so if you had, say, a brother or sister who committed suicide and died, or even attempted that, and they had that spiritual yoke on them, because it's a generational curse, other people would be afraid to marry you, even though you never done anything like that, because they'd be afraid that that generational yoke would end up on the bloodline, okay? There was all these different things that they were having to do, they didn't have the power of Yeshua, right? So we can't even fully understand what that would have felt like, right? And how that you would have had to operate under that circumstance. So they were actually afraid to accidentally eat food offered to idols, right? They were actually afraid that they were going to do that accidentally. It's not that Paul was telling them to go do it purposefully. He was saying, you don't need to be afraid. You have Yeshua now. If it accidentally happens, you're covered. You didn't mean to, you're covered. Okay. So you can live in that freedom and you don't test Jehovah. You don't test him and be like, I'm going to eat bacon today. You don't want to test him and do that. But if it accidentally happens, it's not that you're going to get a demon on you that you can't get rid of. Okay. That is the difference. Okay. So when he canceled the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. Okay. So there's that legal loophole. There's that legal open door that the enemy could get in and torment people. Yeshua canceled that. He made atonement for that. Right? So now he disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them in him. Okay. So now the people had that authority. So even if they didn't do everything perfectly and they accidentally, there was some lard in a cake that they ate and they never even knew it was there, they're not going to get demons hopping on them. They're not going to get demons hopping on them. Okay. So we have to understand this difference, because in our modern thinking, we've had Yeshua for so long. In our modern thinking, we think this means just go and test Jehovah and live lawlessly and do whatever we want. No, he's saying that even if you go and sit at a table with unbelievers and you eat food and you accidentally eat some food that you didn't know was offered to an idol, don't ask, number one, because then you're going to make yourself more stressed out. But if you didn't know and you were at a table ministering to them and you accidentally did it and you didn't know better, you're covered, right? That's what he's saying. Okay. So Colossians 2:16. Therefore, let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath. These are a shadow of things to come, but the substance belongs to Yeshua. Okay. So how do we know he is not talking about pagan festival observance here? Because he says these are a shadow of things to come, but the substance belongs to Yeshua. So he's talking about people who are passing judgment on those who are keeping Sabbaths and who are keeping the holy days and how they keep it, and debating about how they should keep it and all of this stuff. He's not saying go and keep false pagan fake days that are not a shadow of Christ. Okay. Christmas is not a shadow of Christ. Easter is not a shadow of Christ. It's a manipulation of the shadow. Halloween is not a shadow of Christ. Okay. The substance belongs to Christ. Okay. So we shouldn't be questioning when we're doing things to honor and do our best, when we're focusing on that it is the shadow of Christ. Okay. Okay, let's leave that there and go back to Exodus 32. So Moshe had gone up and he's saying, I will go up to Jehovah. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. So we've gone through what atonement is. Atonement is paying the cost. Okay. Paying the ransom for the cost of what you did. Basically posting bail, right? So Moshe returned to Jehovah and said, alas, these people have sinned a great sin, but they have made for themselves gods of gold. But now, if you will forgive their sin, but if not, please blot me out of the book that you have written. But Jehovah said to Moshe, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Now go and lead the people to the place about which I have spoken to you. So Moshe's job is to lead the people to the place, the Holy Land. Okay. He's leading them to the land of milk and honey. Okay. They're still in the wilderness. They're still worshiping golden calves. They're still having issues. They're still in rebellion. They're still in the wilderness. Moshe's job, Yeshua's job, all of these these types of Messiah, until we get to Yeshua, their job is to show us how to get to the land of milk and honey, okay? As is Yeshua's job, to make disciples out of us so that we could be like him, right? And so that we can lead others to the land of milk and honey, okay? So Yehovah is saying to Moshe, lead the people to the place which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. Okay. So they're still going to be responsible if they continue to sin. He will visit their sin upon them. This still applies in the New Testament. You can see a picture of it in 1 Corinthians 11, if you want to go there. Okay, so now Moshe is being told to lead them to the land, and the angel is going to go before you. Okay, now let's go back to Isaiah, where we were. Isaiah 57. So we talked about the holy mountain. I just want you to see the parallels here. So Isaiah 57 starts off with the people who are on the wrong mountain, right? Making wrong offerings with the wrong heart. And then we get to Isaiah 57:14. I just want you to notice the parallels. And it shall be said, build up, prepare the way. Moshe is being told, prepare the way. Isaiah 57, prepare the way. Remove every obstruction from my people's way. For thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, and also with him who is contrite and of lowly and lowly of spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly, and to revive the heart of the contrite. I will not contend forever, nor will I always be angry, for the spirit would grow faint before me, and the breath of life that I made. Because of the iniquity of his unjust gain, I was angry. I struck him. I hid my face and was angry. But he went on backsliding with the way of his own heart. I have seen his ways, but I will heal him. I will lead him and restore comfort to him and his mourners, creating the fruit of the lips. Peace, peace to the far and to the near, says Yehovah, and I will heal him. But the wicked are like a tossing sea, for it cannot be quiet. Its waters toss up mire and dirt. There is no peace, says my Elohim, for the wicked. Cry out loud, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Declare to my people their transgressions, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet they seek me daily and delight to know my ways, as they were a nation that did righteousness and did not forsake the judgment of Elohim. They did not ask me for righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to Elohim. So ask of me righteous judgments. Okay. There's the spirit of counsel, which I've gone through this before. The spirit of counsel happens during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We learn and understand the spirit of counsel during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we take counsel of him. What is leaven? What is puffing us up? What is not of you? And we remove it from our houses, okay? And it's that picture of sin. It's a picture of pride. It's a picture. So we're supposed to be seeking of him righteous judgments and seeking of him what he thinks about things, okay? A lot of times when you have discussions with people and you talk to them about righteous judgments, they say, well, God knows my heart, okay? But God does know your heart, but you're supposed to desire to know his heart, right? That is taking the spirit of counsel. There's 7 spirits of Yehovah, okay? The spirit of counsel is you having the desire to know his heart, not expecting him to know your heart. Oh, well, he knows my heart. He knows your heart is deceitful above all things. That's what the word says, okay? But we are supposed to take counsel with him, take the spirit of counsel with him, and desire to know his heart on things, right? To seek righteous judgment, okay? So this is talking about those who did not seek his righteous judgment. Okay, going back to Exodus 32. Um, okay, behold, my angels shall go before you as they go to the land. Nevertheless, in this day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. So he's going to visit their sin upon him. And so what happens next is Jehovah sent a plague on the people because they made the calf, the one that Aaron made. Okay. So because of the calf, even though Moshe went up and made atonement and tried to pay the ransom, he still is going to send a plague on the people. Okay. Let's look at the mirror of this picture. This is a shadow. Let's look at the mirror of it in Revelation. Okay. Who gets the plagues in Revelation? We're going to go to Revelation 2. Thyatira, Revelation 2:18. And to the church of Thyatira write the words of the Son of Yah, who has eyes like a flame of fire, and whose feet are like burnished bronze. I know your works, your love and your faith and your service and patient endurance, and that your latter works exceeded the first. But this I have against you, that you tolerate that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess and is teaching and seducing my servants to practice sexual immorality and to eat food sacrificed to idols. I gave her time to repent, but she refuses to repent of her sexual immorality. Behold, I will throw her onto a sickbed, and those who commit adultery with her into great tribulation, unless they repent of her works. I will strike her children dead, and all the churches will know that I am he who searches the heart and the mind, and will give to each according to your works. Okay. Same shadow picture, New Testament, future event, book of Revelation, exact same shadow picture as Moshe is taking the people from. What did Jezebel do? Jezebel seduced the people to bring the idolatry into the kingdom. Okay. Now, Yeshua is talking to people who are saved by grace through faith in this letter. Okay. He's talking to believers. These are believers that are going to have to go through the plagues because they tolerated Jezebel. And Jezebel was seducing them to eat food sacrificed to idols. Do you see the picture here? Okay, so what church has a lot of idols? The number one church I would say would be the Catholic Church, right? They bring in all the idolatry, they bring all the idols into the kingdom, pray to this saint, pray to that saint, pray to Mary, all this idolatry, they bring it in. So that spirit of Jezebel has brought in all the idolatry into the church, and it's leading the people to eat food sacrificed to idols. Okay, when we eat at a feast table, okay, we're having a feast or a festival. We are eating food, okay? We have sacrificed our time, our money, our mental capacity, all of these things. It's an offering. You've made a table of offering, okay? Now, if you are doing that in honor of a false feast on a false day, worshiping at a false mountain with false symbols, you are sacrificing to idols. You're sacrificing to idolatry. An idol is an image that's been carved by hands, by man-made hands, an image. So you can carve an image by writing it out on paper. You can carve an image by preaching it with your mouth. You can carve an image by telling people it's okay to do this, this, and that, even though it's not in the word. You can carve an image. And a carved image made out of human hands is an idol, okay? So if you have a false day with false symbols and all sorts of falseness intertwined with it, and you are making a table and you're eating food before all of this false stuff, you're at the table of demons. You can't eat at the table of demons and at the table of Yah at the same time. Then you are eating food sacrificed to idols. I pray that this clicks for some of you, okay? You are practicing adultery. You're supposed to be married to Yah. You're supposed to be engaged to Yeshua. You're supposed to be in covenant with them. Now you are practicing adultery because you are being engaged to all these idols instead, all of this idolatry instead, okay? These people who are engaged in this idolatry and this eating this food sacrificed to idols. So please stop saying all food is clean, because these people are eating food sacrificed to idols and they're going to experience plagues because of it. This is the book of Revelation. This is not Exodus anymore. We're in Revelation now. Okay. So how are all foods clean if these people are about to experience plagues because they're eating food sacrificed to idols? I thought that food was clean. Must be misunderstanding what it means, you guys. There's some misunderstanding there. Okay. So if you're eating food sacrificed to idols because Jezebel, the spirit of Jezebel, the Jezebel church has told you it's okay because all foods are clean. By the way, that verse, if you look it up, it was not in the original manuscripts. Where Yeshua did not actually say that, that verse was added by scribes. Beware of the scribes, okay? So that verse was added by scribes. It does not say, thus Yeshua made all foods clean. That verse was never in the original manuscripts, okay? We're not going to get into what is food and what is not food today, but yes, indeed, you can be seduced into eating food sacrificed to idols, okay? Easter eggs, food sacrificed to idol. Christmas ham, food sacrificed to an idol. Halloween candy, food sacrificed to an idol, okay? All of these are food sacrificed. You're eating and partaking of the table of demons instead of eating and partaking of the table of Yah. Okay, so these people, I will throw her into a sick bed. So Jezebel, the Jezebel church, I will throw her into a sick bed, and those who commit adultery, those who are clinging to their idols instead of clinging to Yah, choose this day who you will serve, I will throw them into great tribulation. So can a believer experience great tribulation? Absolutely, a believer can experience great tribulation. These are believers. These are people in churches that he's talking to. He's warning people in churches right now, okay? Unless they repent of her works, okay? So Yah's works are his word, his revelations, his scripture, his things that he's teaching us. That's his good food. That's the bread from heaven, okay? Her works is all this man-made tradition, bringing idols into the kingdom, praying to saints, praying to all this false stuff, all the false stuff that's not actually in scripture. Those are her works. Those are the works of Jezebel, okay? And I will strike her children dead. And all the churches will know that I am he who searches the heart and mind, and I will give to each of you according to your works, okay? That is a direct mirror of what we just read in Exodus, okay? Exodus 32:34. Behold, nevertheless, in that day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. He will visit your sin upon you, okay? That's why you got to make sure your garments are clean, okay? Exodus 32:35. And then Jehovah sent a plague on the people because they had made the calf, the one that Aaron made. Jehovah said to Moses, depart and go up from here, you and the people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt to the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your offspring I will give it. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Go to a land flowing with milk and honey. But I will not go up among you, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people. Okay? So why does Jehovah send the angel and Moshe to deliver the people? Because Jehovah is holy, and if he walks along with them and he's holy, and you're going to be all stiff-necked, he will consume you. He will have no choice to consume you because he is holy. So he sends Moshe and the angel to guide and lead the people into the land, okay? Out of the wilderness, which is where most believers are flailing around stiff-necked in the wilderness right now, okay? Most believers are in the wilderness. They've left Egypt, sort of. Some of them are still back in Egypt and they don't even realize it. They're in the wilderness, flailing around, kind of making golden calves. That's where they are in their journey, okay? Most believers in their journey, they're sitting at the bottom of Mount Sinai making golden calves. They're just hanging out there making golden calves. That's what they're doing right now, okay? Moshe and the angel are supposed to take the people and guide them into the promised land, okay? And then later, Moshe can't guide the people all the way. Moshe wasn't up for the task, but Joshua. So Joshua is a picture of Yeshua. Joshua will bring them into the literal land, okay? Then Yeshua comes later and brings us all into the metaphorical and literal land, okay? He brings about all good things, okay? So these are pictures of, we need an intercessor, because if we had dealt directly with Yah, he would have had to consume us because we're stiff-necked people, okay? Because he's holy. He's holy. He can't be in the presence of unholy because he's holy. That's why he sends an intercessor, okay? That's why he had to send Yeshua to be our covering so that he doesn't flare against us because we're not holy. So when he looks at us, he sees the covering of Yeshua, right? Like a husband would cover a bride, okay? Exodus 33:4. When the people heard this disastrous word, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. For Jehovah had said to Moses, say to the people of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. For if in a single minute I should go up among you, I would consume you. Now take off your ornaments, that I may know what to do with you. Therefore, the people of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Oreb onward. Okay. Remember that the people had already removed their jewelry. They had already removed their jewelry to make the golden calf. So these ornaments that he's talking about is not jewelry, right? It's not that. They've already removed that. They've removed that to make the golden calf. So what are they removing? They're removing all the falsehood of Egypt. They're removing all the ways that they used to understand the gods, okay? They're removing all of that. They're laying it down. They're removing their own personal history and their own personal ideas. They're removing all the old traditions that they were used to, that they learned in Egypt, okay? They're removing all of that, okay? And now, therefore, the people of Israel stripped themselves. They were naked. Where was the last time people were naked? In the garden. They stripped themselves of their ornaments. They were laid bare, and from Mount Oreb onward, okay? So they've now come into a deeper understanding of the covenant. They were willing to take off that stuff from Egypt, the stuff from Babylon, and they were laid bare, and they understood that they had to let that stuff go to be able to move forward and be in covenant with him, okay? Hopefully you guys are getting the shadow pictures and how that relates to us, okay? I want to stop here and I want to go to Acts 7. So you can see that I'm not just making things up. These are meant to be shadow pictures to teach us, okay? So Acts 7 is Stephen talking to the high priest. I'm going to go back a little bit into Acts 6. Okay, we're going to go Acts 6:8. And Stephen, full of grace and power, was doing great wonders and signs among the people. And then some who belonged to the synagogue of the freedmen, as it was called, and of the Cyenians, I don't know how to say that, and the Alexandrians, and those who were from Cilicia and Asia, rose up and disputed with Stephen. But they could not withstand the wisdom and the spirit with which he was speaking. Then they secretly instigated men who said, we have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moses and against Jehovah. And they stirred up the people and the elders and the scribes, and they came upon him and seized him and brought him before the council. And they set up false witnesses who said, "This man never ceases to speak words against the holy place and the law." So they're falsely accusing him of speaking against Moshe and against the law, okay, and the holy place, which would be the temple. For they have heard him say that Yeshua of Nazareth will destroy this place and will change the customs that Moses delivered to us. Okay. And gazing at him, all who sat at the council saw that his face was like the face of an angel. And the high priest said, "Are these things so?" And Stephen said, "Brothers and fathers, hear me. The glory of God appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he lived in Haran, and said to him, 'Go out from your land, from where your kindred go, and go to the land that I will show you.' And then he went out from the land of the Chaldeans and lived in Haran. After this, his father died. Yah removed him from there and in this land which you are now living, yet gave him no inheritance in it, not even a foot's length, but promised to give it to him as a possession and to his offspring after him, though he had no child. And God spoke to this effect, and his offspring would be sojourners in a land belonging to others who would enslave them and afflict them 400 years. But I will judge the nation that they serve, said Jehovah. And after that, they shall come out and worship me in this place. And he gave them the covenant of circumcision, so that Abraham became the father of Isaac and circumcised him on the 8th day. And Isaac became the father of Jacob, and Jacob the 12 patriarchs. So Jacob later became Israel, right? So Jacob wrestled with the angel of Yah and became Israel. He got a new name, okay? It's important to understand because a lot of times we talk about Israel and we talk about how Jacob wrestled and then became Israel, okay? There's a deeper picture there. And the patriarchs, jealous of Joseph, sold him to Egypt. But Jehovah was with him and rescued him out of all of his afflictions and gave him favor and wisdom before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who made him ruler over Egypt and over his household. Now, there came a famine throughout all of Egypt and Canaan, and a great affliction, and our fathers could find no food. But when Jacob heard there was grain in Egypt, he sent out our fathers on their first visit. And on the second visit, Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and Joseph's family known to Pharaoh. And Joseph sent and summoned Jacob, his father, and all his kindred, 75 persons in all. And Jacob went down to Egypt and died, and there he died, he and our fathers. And they were carried back to Shechem and laid in the tomb that Abraham had brought for a sum of silver from the sons of Hamor in Shechem. So I believe that tomb right now is in the part of Gaza, the part of Palestine that's northern. Here, I'll show you. And Hebron. It's called the Cave of the Patriarchs. If you look it up. Yeah, it's in Palestine. It's in West Bank right now. Let me just show you. Okay, so there's the tomb where all the bones are, Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron, okay? This is Gaza Strip. This is West Bank. Okay? I just want to show you that because it's interesting. Okay, Jacob went back, Israel went back, to Egypt, and he died, he and our fathers, and they were carried back to Shechem and laid in the tomb that Abraham bought for a sum of silver from the son of Hamor in Shechem. So that tomb was bought and paid for by Abraham, and the bones of the patriarchs of Israel are in that tomb, and there's a mosque on it. Feel about that, how you want to feel about that. Okay. Acts 7:17. But at that time, but as the time of the promise drew near, which Jehovah had granted to Abraham, the people increased and multiplied in Egypt, until there arose over Egypt another king who did not know Joseph, and who dealt shrewdly with our race, and forced our fathers to expose their infants, so that they would not be kept alive. At this time, Moshe was born, and he was beautiful in Yah's sight, and he was brought up for 3 months in his father's house. And when he was exposed, Pharaoh's daughter adopted him and brought him up as her own son. And Moshe was instructed in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, as he was mighty in his words and deeds. When he was 40 years old, and it came to be in his heart to visit his brothers, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them had been wronged, he defended the oppressed man and avenged him by striking down the Egyptian. He supposed that his brothers would understand that Yah was giving them salvation by his hand, but they did not understand. And the following day, when he appeared to them as they were quarreling, and tried to reconcile them, saying, "Men, you are brothers. Why do you wrong each other?" But the man who was wronging his neighbor thrust him aside and said, "Who made you a ruler and judge over us? Do you want to kill me as you killed the Egyptian yesterday?" At this retort, Moses fled and became exile in the land of Midian, where he became the father of 2 sons. Now, when 40 years passed, an angel appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai, as in a flame of fire on a bush. When Moshe saw it, he was amazed by the sight, and he drew near to look, and there came the voice of Jehovah. "I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob." And Moshe trembled and did not dare to look. Then Jehovah said to him, "Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their groaning, and I have come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send you to Egypt." This Moses, whom they rejected, saying, "Who made you ruler and judge?" This man God sent as both ruler and redeemer by the hand of the angel who appeared to him in the bush. And this man led them out, performing wonders and signs in Egypt and at the Red Sea and in the wilderness for 40 years. And this is the Moses who said to the Israelites, "God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brothers." Okay, so he's talking about Yeshua. This is the one who was in the congregation of the wilderness with the angel who spoke to him at Mount Sinai and with our fathers. He received living oracles to give to us. Our fathers refused to obey him, but thrust aside in their hearts, they turned to Egypt. How did they turn to Egypt? They refused to obey him. Okay. That's why I say some of these pastors and priests are still over in Egypt. They're refusing to obey Jehovah. They want to live in Egypt. Okay. They want to stay in Egypt. Saying to Aaron, "Make for us gods that will go before us. As for this Moses who led us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And they made a calf in those days and offered a sacrifice to the idol and were rejoicing in the works of their hands. Okay. So what's an idol? It's a work of human hands. But Yehovah turned away and gave them over to worship. But Yah turned away and gave them over to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets. So they are worshiping the host of heaven. They're worshiping angels and demons and all of these things. As it is written in the book of the prophets, did you bring to me slain beasts and sacrifices during the 40 years in the wilderness, O house of Israel? You took up the tent of Moloch and the star of your god Rephem. So the star of your god Rephem, and the images that you made to worshiping images that are made. I will send you into exile beyond Babylon. Our fathers had the tent of witness in the wilderness, just as he who spoke to Moses directed him to make it, according to the pattern that he had seen. Our fathers, in turn, brought it with Joshua, whom they dispossessed brought it in with Joshua when they dispossessed the nations that Jehovah drove out before our fathers, as so it was in the days until the days of David, who found favor in the sight of Jehovah and asked to find a dwelling place for the God of Jacob, as it was for Solomon, who built a house for him. Yet the Most High does not dwell in houses made by hands, as the prophet says. Heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. What kind of house will you build for me, says Jehovah? Or what is the place of my rest? Did not my hand make all these things? I want to take this and go back to this understanding of the Sabbath day. Okay, what is the first thing that Moshe was told? Above all else, keep my Sabbaths, because they are a sign between me and you, between him and us, that I am Jehovah who sanctifies you. Okay. And then after he said that, he points us back to Genesis. Okay. What is the first Sabbath in Genesis? The first Sabbath in Genesis is this picture that Jehovah creates the whole heaven and earth. He creates us. He creates the animals. He creates everything. And then he invites us on the seventh day to rest with him. What is my place of rest? What kind of house will you build for me, says Jehovah? Or what is my place of rest? Did my hand not make all these things? So on the seventh day, what is he doing? He is inviting us in to recognize all that he has done. It is a picture of us resting with him and glorifying him and understanding that he is the one that sanctifies us, that we don't make false images to sanctify ourselves, okay? We don't change Sabbath days to sanctify ourselves. We don't make false feasts. We don't make false Sabbaths. We come into what he's done and we glorify that, okay? That's what he did on the very first Sabbath. He created everything and he said, Adam, Eve, come here. Come here, you guys. I want to show you something. And he sat with them and rested on the Sabbath with them and looked at all the work that he had done and glorified with it. That's what we do here on the Sabbath day. We're like, okay, let's open up his word and look at all the works that he has done. This is all the stuff that he has done so that we can know him, so that we can know who he is, right? Yet the Most High does not dwell in houses made by hands, as the prophet says, heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. What kind of house will you build for me, says Jehovah? Or what is my place of rest? Did not my hands make all of these things? So what is his place of rest? If you want to find his place of rest in anything, you have to find where he has done things and where he is building things and where he is moving. His place of rest is found in worship and obedience. If you want to enter his rest, you enter that place where you're glorifying all that he has done instead of trying to do things, okay? Instead of trying to do your own works, you glorify all that he has done, okay? Acts 7:51, you stiff-necked people, uncircumcised in heart and ears. So is circumcision is that just like about the actual ritualistic act that you do on the eighth day with baby boys? No. Circumcision is a metaphor of you have not cut away your flesh so that you can hear properly, so that the Torah can get in your heart properly. Your heart is not actually cut and the Torah is not in there. You're still a stiff-necked person, okay? You stiff-necked. When did he call all the other people stiff-necked people? When they would not listen and obey him. When they would not listen and obey him, they said, you're so stiff-necked, I can't even be around you because my holy fire, my wrath will automatically burn against you because you are so stiff-necked, okay? You're uncircumcised in ears and heart. You always resist the Holy Spirit as your fathers did, so do you. Which of the prophets did your fathers not persecute? And they killed those who announced beforehand the coming of the righteous one, whom you have now betrayed and murdered. You who received the law as delivered by angels and did not keep it. So is the problem of the law? No. They did not keep the law. That was the problem. You received the law as delivered by angels, but you did not keep it, okay? The law is not the problem. We go through this in Hebrews. In Hebrews, it talks about how the law was never the problem. The problem is the stiff-necked people who refuse to obey the law, right? Acts 7:54. And now they heard these things and were enraged, and they ground their teeth at him. But he, full of the Holy Spirit, gazed into heaven and saw the glory of Yehovah and Yeshua standing at the right hand of Yehovah. So are they the same person? Is Yeshua the same person as God? No. Yah is a separate entity from Yeshua, because Yeshua can't stand at the right hand of himself. He's not standing at his own right hand, okay? Saw the glory of Yehovah and Yeshua standing at the right hand of Yehovah. Okay? Yeshua is not Yehovah. Yeshua is the son of Yehovah. And behold, I see the heavens opened and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of Yehovah. He's the Son of Man. He's the son of Yehovah. He is not Yehovah. But they cried out with a loud voice and stopped their ears and rushed together at him. And they cast him out of the city and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their garments at the feet of the young man named Saul. And as they were stoning Stephen, he called out, Lord Yeshua, receive my spirit. And falling to his knees, he cried out with a loud voice, Lord, do not hold this sin against them. And when he had done this, he fell asleep. So even in the very bitter end, so notice the two things. When Yeshua was dying, he prayed and interceded for the people. And now when Stephen is dying, he prayed and interceded for the people, okay? The mark of a disciple and the mark of a leader is the one, even when they're being persecuted, even when they're even being brought to the point of death, they are interceding on behalf of the people that don't know better, they don't know. And that's a very big mark of a disciple, okay? So when people are slandering and calling names and cursing at you, that is a sign that they are not a disciple, that they don't get it yet, okay? So we got to pray for those people. What else did I say we were going to talk about today? We got to go back to Exodus, I think. Okay, stiff-necked people. So the people had laid off their ornaments. So now they're starting to get it. They were taking off their ornaments. They're taking off their false thinking. They were making themselves naked, willing to remove all the leaven, all the false teachings of Egypt, all the false teachings of Babylon, all the false teachings of everything. They're going to remove that and just look to learn from Yah alone, okay? Looking to the word alone. That is a sign when a person is ready to remove all the ornaments, the false teachings, and all the leaven, and they just want to know the truth. They want to know what the word says and what he's trying to say through his word. That is a sign that they've reached this point at Mount Oreb, okay? And that they're ready to move forward into the land, okay? So when you are saved from Egypt, right, you put the blood on your door, right? And so now we put Yeshua's blood on the altar of our heart, right? Saved by grace through faith into the wilderness. One of the first commandments are given in the wilderness is keep the Sabbath day, right? And so now the people are in the wilderness. They're still making golden calves at the bottom of Mount Sinai, even though Moses is up grabbing the commandments for them. They're still stiff-necked people. They're still not obedient. They're still refusing to believe in so many ways, right? And so these people are still in the wilderness, right? Now they reach the point where they're removing not only their jewelry from Egypt, but they're removing all the ornamentation, all their traditions, all their understandings, all of that from Egypt, and they're willing to remove that, okay? Now, in this modern time, when we have our people walking through the wilderness, when you see people and they get to this place where they're like, I just want the truth. I just want to know what the word actually says. And they remove all that ornamentation from Egypt. And sometimes they remove a lot of it and get really legalistic about it. But sometimes, and then they come back and they understand that it wasn't all leaven, right? But people try to remove the leaven. They try to remove the false teachings. They remove the Christmas and Easter. They remove this understanding that the Sunday is a Sabbath. They understand that that's leaven from Rome, right? And as they remove all of that, they come into this new part of the journey. The new part of the journey is the journey from Mount Oreb into the promised land, okay? And so the journey from Mount Oreb into the promised land is being obedient to his commandments, learning how to walk with him, learning how to fight warfare with him, and bringing other people, trying to help the other people understand and get into the land too, okay? And that's the part of the journey that the people are now going on, okay? So Exodus 33:7. Now Moshe used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought Jehovah would go to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moshe went to the tent, all the people would rise up and each would stand at his tent door and watch Moshe until he'd gone into the tent. And when Moshe entered the tent, the pillar of the cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and Jehovah would speak with Moshe. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his tent door. Thus, Jehovah used to speak to Moshe face to face as a man speaks to his friend. When Moshe turned again into the camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, and a young man would not depart from the tent. I'm going to let the computer read this now for the next little bit.
Moses said to the Lord, "See, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now, therefore, if I have found favor in your sight, please show me now your ways, that I may know you in order to find favor in your sight. Consider too that this nation is your people." And he said, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And he said to him, "If your presence will not go with me, do not bring us up from here. For how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not in your going with us, so that we are distinct, I and your people, from every other people on the face of the earth?" And the Lord said to Moses, "This very thing that you have spoken I will do, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." Moses said, "Please show me your glory." And he said, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy." But, he said, "You cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." And the Lord said, "Behold, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. The Lord said to Moses, cut for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Be ready by the morning, and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai, and present yourself there to me on the top of the mountain. No one shall come up with you, and let no one be seen throughout all the mountain. Let no flocks or herds graze opposite that mountain. So Moses cut 2 tablets of stone like the first, and he rose early in the morning and went up on Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him, and took in his hand 2 tablets of stone. The Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there, and proclaimed the name of the Lord. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the 3rd and the 4th generation. And Moses quickly bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. And he said, if now I have found favor in your sight, O Lord, please let the Lord go in the midst of us, for it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your inheritance. And he said, behold, I am making a covenant. Before all your people I will do marvels, such as have not been created in all the earth or in any nation, and all the people among whom you are shall see the work of the Lord, for it is an awesome thing that I will do with you.
Okay. The work of Yehovah. Created, I will do marvels, such not have been created in all the earth or in any nation. All the people among whom you are shall see the work of the Lord, for it is an awesome thing that I will do with you. Okay. So when we're glorifying his works and we're doing his works, it means these are the things that he has done that are in the word. Okay. And this is why I often talk about doing the works of man. So if you're changing these works and you're obscuring them and you're adding things into them, a really good example of this is the Catholic Church and their Stations of the Cross. So the Catholic Church has this thing called the Stations of the Cross. I learned it because I grew up Catholic. And in the Stations of the Cross, there's all these things that apparently happened. But those things are not written in scripture. Okay. So we have to be careful to make sure that we are glorifying the works of Yehovah, the things that he has specifically done and that he has shown us that he's done, instead of glorifying man-made writings. Okay. This is why I don't often, if ever, read books that humans have written. As far as like, I'll be honest, I don't really read, like if somebody was to give me a book about theology and stuff, I don't usually read that stuff. It's very rare that I will read that stuff. Mostly because, unless it's somebody digging into the works of Yehovah, because often these theology books are the works of men. They're glorifying the works of men. So we have to be really careful. You have to know what the scriptures actually say so that you're not glorifying the works of men instead of glorifying the works of Yehovah. Okay? Because his works testify to Yeshua. All prophecy is a testimony of Yeshua, right? That's what it says in Revelation. So these are the works that we read and we study that testify of Yeshua. So we want to study these works instead of studying the works of men. So if you're studying Christmas as a feast, meaning putting all your money and all your time and all your energy into the devotion of that feast, or the devotion of Easter as a feast, you are glorifying the works of men rather than the works of Yehovah, because Yehovah has given us very specific feasts to put our effort and our devotion into learning. These are the shadows of Messiah. Those other feasts are the shadows of Rome, or the shadows of men, or the shadows of Babylon. Okay. That's what those feasts are shadows of. Okay. So we have to decide if we're going to put our devotion into the things of Yah or the things of men. Okay.
Observe what I command you this day. Behold, I will drive out before you the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Take care lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land to which you go, lest it become a snare in your midst. You shall tear down their altars and break their pillars, and cut down their Asherim. For you shall worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and when they whore after their gods and sacrifice to their gods, and you are invited, you eat of his sacrifice, and you take of their daughters for your sons, and their daughters whore after their gods, and make your sons whore after their gods. You shall not make for yourself any gods of cast metal.
Okay. This will hit it home. Okay. So if you go to the Vatican, and if you go into the Vatican is completely full of false god statues. Okay. Just flip this. Full. It's not even a mystery that we're looking to solve, guys. It's obvious. Okay. These are all false god statues. That one, right? These are all false god statues that are on display in the Vatican. Okay. You can go and do your research on this. Oh, that's an interesting. Vatican statues inappropriate. I don't even want to know what some of these are. There's Apollo and Delphine. That's in the Vatican. Ancient Greek god statues in the Vatican. This one, which is I forget what that one's called. Even statues of Jezebel, but they call it Mary, but it's actually Jezebel. Okay. So he clearly said, don't do this. Don't yoke yourself. Okay. Don't yoke yourself to these things. Right. I mean, if you want to go through those things on your own and look at them, you can. Some of them are very inappropriate. I had a friend that went to the Vatican and he basically said there's phallic symbols everywhere. Phallic symbols everywhere. So do with that information what you will. Okay, so what were we just reading? He's going to drive out these different people, but take care lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land that you go, lest it become a snare in your midst. You shall tear down their altars, break their pillars, and cast down their ashram, for you shall not worship any other god. For Jehovah, who's a jealous God, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and when they whore after their gods and sacrifice to their gods, you are invited and eat of his sacrifice. And you take their daughters for your sons, and their daughters whore after their gods, and make your sons whore after their gods. This is a really, really common thing where, because women tend to be more into feasts and festivals and all that stuff, because it's very like feminine to be into that kind of stuff. Men will marry a woman who is from another land, and they have their own feasts and festivals. And so instead of getting rid of those things, they'll end up compromising, right? Because you don't want to argue all the time, right? So you have to be careful that you're not unequally yoked. That's why he says don't be unequally yoked, because if you get yoked to somebody, so say I married a Viking, a Norse Viking, and he worships, the Viking gods, and is all about it, right? Now, because I've married him, I have to, submit and obey and be, live in peace with him. I made that choice to marry him. So I either have two choices in life now. Every day is going to be a fight because I want to serve Yehovah. And so I'm going to be fighting with my husband all the time. Or I'm going to have to start worshiping his false gods in some way, right? That's why you don't become unequally yoked. You be very, very careful. It is the most important decision that you can make. If you marry a woman from another land and she has all these rituals and things that she does in her heritage, and she's not willing to take off those ornaments and follow after Yehovah, then you're going to have a fight constantly, right? You shall not make for yourselves any gods of cast metal. Okay, so don't cast any gods. And so we're supposed to, the Vatican, if they were biblical and if they obeyed the Bible, they would get rid of all those statutes. They would crush and break all those altars and all those statutes. But instead of crushing and breaking them and destroying them, they keep them and they put them up and they keep them in their home, in their facility, right? So if you are making a covenant with Rome, with the Vatican, and anything that the Vatican does, you are now in covenant with them. You are yoked to them. So you are partaking of all of this. When they whore after their gods and sacrifice to their gods, and you are invited and you eat of this sacrifice, you have now yoked yourself to that, okay? Look at what comes next, the very next verse. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. Okay? There's a reason these things go in this order. There's a reason they're in this order.
You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread as I commanded you at the time appointed in the month Abib. For in the month Abib you came out from Egypt. All that open the womb are mine. All your male livestock, the firstborn of cow and sheep. The firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear before me empty-handed.
So someone was asking me how we know when the Feast of Passover is and how we know when the year starts. We know because he says here, the Feast of Unleavened Bread happens, right? At the time in the month of Abib, for in the month of Abib, you came out of Egypt, okay? Abib means the grain is ripe, okay? And so that's why we check the grain, make sure it's ripe, because that's when we know that it's the month of Abib. Now that usually doesn't happen until after the spring equinox, okay? The grain doesn't become ripe until after the spring equinox because you need enough sun to ripen the grain, right? So this equinox happens and then the grain becomes ripe. This is usually how it goes down. And then the Passover begins, okay? Because then you know it's the month of Abib, okay? That's how we know. People just ask me this all the time, so I just thought I'd stick it in there. That's how we know when the year starts, okay?
6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day you shall rest. In plowing time and in harvest you shall rest. You shall observe the Feast of Weeks, the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at the year's end. 3 times in the year shall all your males appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. For I will cast out nations before you, and enlarge your borders. No one shall covet your land, when you go up to appear before the Lord your God 3 times in the year.
When do people stop coveting after the land of Israel? He tells us. When is all the war going to be over in Israel? When all the males start appearing 3 times a year before Yehovah, the God of Israel, I will cast out the nations before you and enlarge your borders, that no one shall covet your land. When you go up and appear before Yehovah, your Elohim, 3 times a year. So when does this no more coveting of the land start? When all the males who are called by his name are keeping the feasts and festivals and keeping his Sabbaths holy. all of those who are called by his name, once they start keeping the Sabbath holy and they're going up to Israel 3 times a year and appearing before Jehovah 3 times a year, that's when no one will covet the land anymore. That's pretty crazy. I never noticed that before. No one shall covet your land. When you go up and appear before Jehovah, your Elohim, 3 times in a year. So the men were supposed to go up during Passover. And they're supposed to go up during Shavuot. And they're supposed to go up during Sukkot. Okay? It'd be really amazing if that was like a literal thing that people were doing. Can it be a spiritual thing? I guess so. It could be a spiritual thing too, like going up in the spirit, right? Turning your heart towards Jerusalem, in the spirit doing it. But I think it's Zechariah 14. Zechariah 14 is where it talks about when it talks about in the millennial reign how the men from every nation will have to come to Jerusalem for the feast of Sukkot. And if they do not come for the feast of Sukkot, they will not get rain in their land. Okay. And that's during the millennial reign.
You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened, or let the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover remain until the morning. The best of the first fruits of your ground you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk.
Okay. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened. So is it a wise idea to combine Yeshua with false days, false Easter ham, perhaps, eggs and bunnies? Is it a wise thing to offer that offering of Yeshua, right? To have the communion of Yeshua and mix it with chocolate, bunnies, and eggs? Probably not a wise thing to do. Okay. Let the best of the first fruits of your ground, you shall bring these to the house of Jehovah your Elohim. So always offering him your best. Tomorrow on the way that I look at the calendar, tomorrow is first fruits. So that would be the day that Yeshua rose. That would be tomorrow for me. And so you want to offer the best of your first fruits of your ground. The best that you have to offer, you want to bring that to the house of Jehovah. So whether that's a financial offering or the best, and really think and pray about the best thing that you could bring him and offer to him. It could be anything that he's given you in that way. And so you want to pray about that because that's going to be different for every person, right? And then he ends it with, you shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Okay. What is that all about? So boiling a young goat in its mother's milk is a ancient Canaanite fertility ritual. And he's speaking to the people who understood this in like, don't do all of these things. Keep the feast of unleavened bread. Keep my Sabbaths. Obey me. Do all the Sabbaths so that I can sanctify you. Don't do the pagan fertility rituals. Okay, that's what he's saying here. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. That was a Canaanite fertility ritual. So he's speaking to people like, don't do all these fertility rituals. Okay, what do you think eggs and bunnies are about? Have you ever heard like making babies like bunnies, breeding like bunnies? Okay. Eggs and bunnies are about fertility rituals. Okay. That's why we have that thing happening in the spring where people are talking about eggs and bunnies. Those are fertility rituals. So do not do that. And don't keep that leaven in your house while you bring the sacrifice of Yeshua. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened. Okay. I'm hoping this is connecting for you. Okay. We were also going to go to, I don't think we have time to go into Joshua. Yeah, let's go to Joshua 3. Let's do it. Let's start with Joshua 3. So I think it'll show up. I think it'll show up the timing of when Joshua entered the land. If I recall correctly, so they left Egypt during the Passover, and when Joshua enters the land, it's also during the Passover. So there's two understandings of the Passover. There's that Passover understanding where you're leaving Egypt and you're going into the wilderness. And then there's the Passover understanding where you're going to cross over the Jordan and enter the land, okay? So when they left Egypt, they cross over the Reed Sea, right? And they enter the wilderness. And then with Joshua, they circumcise themselves, right? We're going to go through that. And then they cross the Jordan and go into the land. These are each Passovers. They're passing over, okay? Joshua 3:1. And then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Shittim, and they came to the Jordan, and he heard all the people of Israel and lodged there before they passed over. At the end of 3 days, the officers went through the camp and commanded the people, as soon as you see the Ark of the Covenant of Jehovah your Elohim being carried by the Levitical priests, then you shall set out from your place and follow it. So the Levites, those who had joined themselves to Jehovah, had lawad themselves to Jehovah, they were going to carry the ark, and then the people were to follow the Ark of the Covenant, okay? Yet there shall be distance between you and it, about 2,000 cubits in length. Do not come near it, in order that you may know the way you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. Of our Passover. Past is a verb, so it's an action word, a verb, past. Of our Passover, through, by, pass on. To cross a stream, a wadi, a sea, etc. There's also a picture of a Passover, so passing over the wadi, the stream, when David and his mighty men leave Achish's territory in 2 Samuel, and they pass over the wadi of good news, and they go in to set up the Davidic kingdom. There was a Passover that happens then as well, okay? Which is obviously extremely interesting. So there's many examples of passing over that happen. Now I've lost my place. Do not come near it, in order that you may know the way that you shall go, for you have not passed over this way before. Then Joshua said to the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow Jehovah will do wonders among you. And Joshua said to the priests, take up the Ark of the Covenant and pass on before the people. Pass on before the people. And so they took up the Ark of the Covenant and went before the people. And Jehovah said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that that as I was with Moses, I will be with you. And as for you, command the priests who bear the Ark of the Covenant, when you come to the brink of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. And Joshua said to the people of Israel, come here and listen to the word of Jehovah your Elohim. And Joshua said, here is how you will know that the living Elohim, the living El, is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the Ark of the Covenant of Jehovah, of Adon, and all of the earth is passing over, Avar, before you into the Jordan. Behold, the ark of the covenant of Adon, of all the earth, the ark of the covenant of the God of all the earth, is passing over before you into the Jordan. Take therefore, now therefore, take 12 men from the tribes of Israel, from each tribe a man, and when the soles of the feet of the priests bearing the ark of Jehovah and the Lord of all the earth shall rest on the waters of the Jordan, and the water of the Jordan shall be cut off from flowing, and the waters coming down from above shall stand in one heap. And so when the people set out from their tents, you can see how it's a shadow of the Exodus, right? So they had the water split with the Exodus, right? And they head into the wilderness, and now the waters are going to split and they're going to head into the land. There are two types of Passovers, okay? Now this one, that when they pass over into the land, they have the Ark of the Covenant, okay? They didn't have the Ark of the Covenant, they just had the blood. They just had the blood on their doors of the Passover lamb when they went into the wilderness, okay? But now that they have the ark and they understand the covenant, they're going to enter the land. The waters are going to part for them to enter the land, okay? The shadow pictures. So when the people set out from their tents to pass over the Jordan with the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people. And as soon as those bearing the ark had come as far as the Jordan, the feet of the priests bearing the ark were dipped in the brink of the water. Now the Jordan overflows all of its banks throughout the time of harvest. The waters coming down from above stood and rose up in a heap very far away. At Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan, and those flowing down towards the Sea of Abra and the Salt Sea were completely cut off. And all the people passed over Avar opposite Jericho. Now the priests bearing the Ark of the Covenant of Jehovah stood firmly on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan. And all Israel was passing over on dry ground until all the nation finished passing over the Jordan. How many Passovers do we count there? Passover. It's interesting because in Luke 22, it's Passover. It's like constant talking about Passover in Luke 22. Joshua 4. When all the nation had finished passing over the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, take 12 men from the people from each tribe and command them, saying, take 12 stones from here out of the midst of the Jordan, from this very place where the priest feet stood firmly, and bring over with you and lay them down on the place where you lodge tonight. Then Joshua called the 12 men from the people of Israel, whom he had appointed, a man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, pass on before the ark of Jehovah your Elohim in the midst of the Jordan, and take up each of you a stone from his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, that it may be a sign among you when your children ask in the time to come, what do these stones mean to you? And then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of Jehovah, when it passed over the Jordan, and the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. Okay, so they built a stone memorial there. Joshua 4:8, and the people of Israel did just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones from out of the midst of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, just as Jehovah told Joshua, and they carried them over to the place where they had lodged and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in a place where the feet of the priest bearing the Ark of the Covenant had stood. And they are there to this day. For the priests bearing the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished that Jehovah commanded Joshua to tell the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. I do believe the stones are still there. I believe that they're still there. But who would know if they're the same stones? I don't know. I would think that they would be the same stones. Apparently they're still there. But yeah, you'd have to dig into that to verify it. The people passed over in haste. What's haste? Haste is, it's an interesting word, the purchase price of a wife. Haste. To flow easily, to be liquid. Mamar. Mahar. To be swept away. That's funny. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Okay, mahar means to be swept away, to be impetuous, to be rash, to quicken, to hasten, to hurry, to do it once. Okay. Mahar, in a verb sense, means to pay the purchase price for a bride. So to be swept away is mahar. To do something in haste is to be quickened, to hasten, to be swept away, is the same word as the purchase, to pay the purchase price for a bride. That's interesting. The people passed over in haste. They were swept away. They did it quickly. And when the people had finished passing over, the ark of Jehovah and all the priests passed over before the people. And the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad and the half tribes of Manasseh passed over, armed before the people of Israel. And Moshe, as Moshe had told them, about 40,000 ready for war passed over before Jehovah for battle to the plains of Jericho. On that day, Jehovah exalted Joshua, in the sight of all Israel, and they stood in awe of him, just as they stood in awe of Moshe all the days of his life. So Joshua is now the new, a new anointed one. Okay, he's the new intercessor, the new anointed one that's going to lead the people into the land. Okay. And Jehovah said to Joshua, command the priests bearing the ark of the testimony to come up out of the Jordan. So Joshua commanded the priests, come up out of the Jordan. And when the priests bearing the ark of the covenant of Jehovah came up from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priest's feet were lifted up onto dry ground, the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and overflowed on all its banks as before. The people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. Okay, yeah, this is where, so what's the first month? Abib, right? So they came out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month. So this is right before Passover is kept, right? Okay, so they're passing over a second time into the land on the Feast of Passover. So there's two understandings of the Feast of Passover. There's the Passover feast where you're saved by grace through faith into the wilderness, and then there's the Passover feast where you are following the ark into the land. Okay, two examples of the Passover feast. And they camped at Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they had took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal. And he said to the people of Israel, when your children ask their fathers in times to come, what do these stones mean? Then you shall let your children know that Israel passed over this Jordan on dry ground. For Jehovah your Elohim dried up the waters of the Jordan for you until you passed over, as Jehovah your Elohim did to the Red Sea, which he dried up for us until we passed over. Okay, so I'm sure you guys can see how Easter doesn't cut it. This understanding of Easter and this Roman deception doesn't really cut it when we're explaining what these symbols mean, right? And you can see how it's such false leaven to put all your attention on these false symbols that have no part of this. Like, we're reading directly from the word, and it's Passover, 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 right? It's very clear, right? So that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of Jehovah is mighty, and that you may fear Jehovah your Elohim forever. Okay, so why do we understand the things of the Passover, and why do we remember these things, and why do we teach them to our children? So that the peoples of the earth may know that it is the hand of Jehovah that is mighty, that you may fear Jehovah your Elohim forever. So when you change feasts and festivals to fake feasts and festivals, you are stealing the glory from Jehovah. You're stealing his story, his testimony, and the way that he wrote things. You're stealing it from him, and you're putting it into Rome's hands or Babylon's hands or whoever's hands that you're using to steal that. Okay, now that we've talked about all these Passovers, I just want to go quickly to Luke 22, and I'll just show you. This will really hit it home for you. Okay, Luke 22. Now that the feast of unleavened bread drew near, which is called the Passover, and the chief priests and scribes are seeking to put him to death, for they feared the people. Who did the priests fear? Did they fear Yah? No, they feared the people. They weren't in fear of Yah, they were in fear of the people. Then Satan entered Judas, called Iscariot, who was of the number of the 12. He went away and conferred with the chief priests and officers that he might betray him to them. And they were glad, and they agreed to give him money. So he consented and sought opportunity to betray them in the absence of a crowd. And then came the day of unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. So Yeshua sent Peter to John, saying, Go and prepare the Passover for us, that we may eat it. They said to him, Where will you have us prepare it? He said to them, Behold, when you have entered the city, the man who is carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him to the house that he enters, and tell the master of the house, the teacher says to you, Where is the guest room, that I may eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room furnished. Prepare it there. And then he went and found it just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover. And when the hour came, he reclined at the table, and the apostles with him, and he said to them, Oh, how earnestly I have desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat of it until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of Jehovah. And he took the cup on which he had given thanks, and he said, Take this and divide it amongst yourselves. For I tell you, from now on, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes. And he took the bread, and when he gave it thanks, he broke it and gave it to him, and saying, This is my body, which I give to you. Do this in remembrance of me. Likewise, the cup after they had eaten, saying, This is the cup that is poured out for you. This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. Behold, the hand of him who betrays me is at this table. For the Son of Man goes as it has been determined, but woe to the man by whom he is betrayed. And they began to question one another, which one of them was going to do this. Okay, so we've got 6 Passovers, 6 in that little section. I just want to note too, like, when does he drink the fruit of the vine again? When he's on the cross, he drinks it again. So when they lift up the rag with the vinegar on it, in I forget which book it was, but in one account, it was wine, sour wine, right? Vinegar is sour wine. So he did drink of the cup again, but he did it on the cross. So when did the kingdom of God arrive? On the cross. So it's, when we say like the kingdom of God is here, it's at hand. It's at hand. You can express the kingdom of God. It's at hand at any moment. You can express it, right? Okay, let's go back to Joshua. Okay, so the chief priests and scribes did not fear Jehovah. Okay, Joshua 4:23. For Jehovah your Elohim dried up the waters of the Jordan for you until you passed over, as Jehovah your Elohim did to the Reed Sea, which he dried up for us until we passed over. And so it is that the peoples of the earth may know that it is the hand of Jehovah that is mighty, and that you should fear Jehovah your Elohim forever. So the priests and the scribes are the ones that are fearing man, do not fear Jehovah, right? Joshua 5:1. As soon as all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, as soon as all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan to the west, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that Jehovah had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the people of Israel until they had crossed over, they're interesting. So they've translated it to crossed over, but it's still avar, passed over. Still passed over, but they just translated it to crossed. Their hearts melted, and there were no longer any spirit in them because of the people of Israel. Their hearts melted because there's no spirit in them because of the people of Israel. So when this is interesting too, the hearts melting. Okay, so when the bad spies came back with the bad report to Moses's camp, the people's hearts melted because the spies brought a bad report, and they had melted their hearts that the giants were going to eat their children, the giants were going to kill their kids, the giants were too big for them. And so the people's hearts melted. Okay, now we have the people going into the land following with the good spies. So the good spies were Joshua and Caleb. Okay, they're going with the good spies, Joshua and Caleb, and they're entering the land. And as they enter the land, the Canaanites and all of their enemies, the giants, their hearts are melting because they understand that the God, Jehovah, the creator of the earth, has dried up the waters of the Jordan so the people could pass over. Okay, there was no longer any spirit in them because of the people of Israel. At that time, Jehovah said to Joshua, make flint knives, and circumcise the sons of Israel a second time. So it doesn't mean circumcise them twice. It means, okay, so the sons that were born in the wilderness were not circumcised. They had never been circumcised. So after they crossed the Jordan and they were going to take back the land, they circumcised their sons. Okay, doesn't mean they had a second circumcision. It means these sons were not yet circumcised because remember the fathers had died in the wilderness, right? Because they had no belief. So you want to make sure you have belief so you don't die in the wilderness, and then you follow the ark into the land. Okay, don't die in the wilderness. Now, when they enter the land and they first cross the seas, yes, it's not a second time. It means Moses did it once with the fathers, but in the wilderness, while they were another 40 years, they weren't circumcising, okay? But when they're ready to enter the land, it was their first time, but it's the second time, okay? Don't get scared. You don't have to do it twice. Make flint knives and circumcise the sons of Israel for a second time. So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the sons of Israel at Gilbeth Harath, and this is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the males of the people who came out of Egypt and all the men at war had died in the wilderness on the way after they'd come out of Egypt. Though these people that had come out had been circumcised, yet the people who were born on the way in the wilderness after they came out of Egypt had not been circumcised. Okay, So he just explained what I was trying to explain. I didn't need to explain it, I guess. For the people of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation of the men who came out of Egypt perished, and they did not obey the voice of Jehovah. Why did they perish? They refused to obey the voice of Jehovah. Jehovah swore to them that he would not let them see the land, and Jehovah swore to their fathers to give to them a land flowing with milk and honey. So it was their children whom he raised up in their place, and Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. Okay, catch this, catch this, catch this. For it was their children whom he raised up in their place that Joshua circumcised. For they were not circumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. So they continued to walk in the wilderness in disobedience, not able to enter the land, being disobedient. They had not been circumcised. And remember, we're talking about circumcised ears. We're talking about circumcised hearts. We're talking about circumcised lips, the words that you speak, the things that you hear, the things that are in your heart. None of them were willing to cut away the flesh and enter the land, okay? And because they were not willing to cut away the flesh and enter the land, they were left dead in the wilderness, okay? I hope you guys are catching this. So the children were raised up in their place because they were willing to circumcise their flesh. They were willing to obey. They're willing to follow Joshua into the land of milk and honey. They're willing to follow the ark and cross the Jordan. Okay. So when you're cutting away your flesh, it means you're cutting away all the things of this world that you are attached to. Can't lay down your Christmas trees because you're too attached to it. Can't lay down your false feasts and holidays because you're too attached to it. We got to lay down these ornaments, right? We have to be willing to circumcise our flesh. We're not hearing the word of Yah because we're too busy listening to Babylon, to Rome, to Egypt, to the things of the world. We're too busy listening to podcasts about the world and how the world sees things. So our ears get plugged and we can't hear the word of Jehovah anymore. So circumcising our flesh is letting go of all those things, okay? Cutting all those things. The main circumcision of the flesh is the understanding of the covenant, the new covenant. Let's go there quickly. I know this is a review for a lot of you, but we got to cover it for the new people, okay? Jeremiah 31:31. Behold the day, this is your covenant. This is the new covenant, okay? So we're talking about circumcision. This is the new covenant, okay? Behold, the days are coming, declares Jehovah, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers on that day where I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. My covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, declares Jehovah. For this covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Jehovah. I will put my Torah, my law within them. I will write it on their hearts. I will be their God and they will be my people. No longer will each one teach his neighbor and teach his brother, saying, know the Lord, know Yahovah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares Jehovah. And I will forgive their iniquity, perverse thinking, and I will remember their sin no more. Okay? So he cuts our heart. That's the circumcision of the heart. You have to have a circumcised heart. You have to cut away the flesh and the desires of the flesh. And then his commands, his Torah, his law goes on your heart, okay? So if your heart is not circumcised, you can tell because you hate his commandments, you hate his feasts, you hate his Sabbaths, you hate his people, you hate all the things that are his, okay? These are his things. If you hate them, your heart is not circumcised, okay? If people are telling you these things and they're talking to you about them and you can't hear and see Yeshua in them, your ears are not circumcised. You have to cut away the flesh from your ears, okay? Or ask him to cut away the flesh from your ears. Even better. Ask him to perform the surgery, right? Back to Joshua. For the people of Israel, can you see the parallels? Everything bounces off each other. It's all parallels. It's all the same story over and over and over. It's on repeat, right? So when your pastor tells you in the modern church that this stuff is not on repeat, he's confused because it's on repeat the whole book, okay? For the people of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until the nation of men who war came out of Egypt perished because they did not obey the voice of Yahovah. Why did they perish? Because they did not obey the voice of Yahovah. And Jehovah swore to them that he would not let them see the land that Jehovah had sworn to their fathers to give them, a land flowing with milk and honey. So it was their children whom he raised up in their place that Yehoshua circumcised. For they were uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised along the way. They stayed in the wilderness, unwilling to hear and obey the voice of Yehovah. That is why they died in the wilderness. Don't die in the wilderness, you guys. When the circumcising, think of it as spiritually, don't think of it as like such a religious thing. Think of it spiritually as well, okay? You know, even the females need to get circumcised hearts, right? Circumcised ears. When the circumcising of the whole nation was finished, the whole nation, everyone was finished, they remained at their places in the camp until they were healed, okay? So they stayed in the camp and he healed them. And then Yehovah spoke to Joshua, today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. And so the name of this place is called Gilgal to this day. So Gilgal means wheel. You roll away the wheel. So he's rolled away the reproach of Egypt, okay? Think about Yeshua in the tomb. It rolls away the tomb, rolls away the stone from the tomb. When Jacob meets Rachel at the well, he rolls away the stone at the well. Go check it if you don't believe me. Okay? Gilgal means wheel. Joshua 5:10. When the people of Israel were camped at Gilgal, they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month in the evening on the plains of the Jericho. And the day after the Passover, on that day, they ate of the produce of the land, unleavened cakes and parched grain. And the manna ceased that day after they ate of the produce of the land. And there was no longer manna for the people of Israel. They ate the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. Okay, so they had the Passover, and then they eat the fruit of the land after the Passover. So they're keeping the Passover as they go into the land. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with a sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and saying, are you with us? Are you for us or for our adversaries? And he said, no, I am the commander of the army of Yehovah. Now I have come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, what does my Lord say to his servant? And the commander of Yehovah's army said to Joshua, take off your sandals from your feet, for the place that you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so. Okay, so now they go in and they're going to take over Jericho and they're going to go to war. So when does the angel of the army of Yehovah come? After they've completed the Passover, after they're all circumcised, after they're actually ready to go to battle. If you go look in Exodus, I can't remember where it is, but there's the part when they first leave Egypt. Yehovah doesn't take them he takes them the long route out of Egypt because he doesn't want them to go to battle right away. They're not ready for battle. So he says, I'm not going to take them that way because they're not ready for battle yet, right? They're too weak for battle. And so I'm not going to take them that way because they'll experience battle if they go that way. I'm going to take them this way, and it's going to take longer, but they're not ready for certain battles yet, okay? And so there's that same picture, right? Who are the people that are able to battle in war and have the authority to battle in war? They're the people who have been circumcised and are ready to enter the land. Those are the people that are leading the battle into the land, okay? The rest of the people are still flailing in the wilderness, not sure what to do, where to go, okay? I hope that was helpful. Let's go to Ezekiel 37. let's end off with Ezekiel 37. Just to wrap it up in a nice clean bow today. Speaking of the battles, we got to go to 36 a bit. There's just so much, but I don't know if I can read it all. I just wanted the part. What is the part where Elijah? Oh, let's do 2 Kings 16, and then we'll do Ezekiel 37. 2 Kings 6. Okay, so this is about Elisha, and they're in a battle, and there's a great army coming, and it's surrounding the city. Okay. 2 Kings 6:15. When the servant of the man of Yah rose early in the morning and went out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. And the servant said, Alas, my master, what shall we do? And he said, Do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And then Elisha prayed and said, O Lord, Yehovah, please open his eyes that he may see. So Yehovah opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots and fire all around Elisha. And when the Syrians came down against him, Elisha prayed to Yehovah and said, Please strike this people with blindness. And so he struck them with blindness in accordance to the prayer of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, This is not the way, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. And he led them to Samaria. Okay. And as they stood and entered Samaria, Elisha said, Oh, Yehovah, open the eyes of these men that they may see. So Yehovah opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And as soon as the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, My father, shall I strike them down? Shall I strike them down? And he answered, You shall not strike them down. Would you strike down those who you have taken captive with your sword and with your bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master. So he prepared for them a great feast, and they'd all eaten and drunk. He sent them away to their master, and the Syrians did not come again on raids to the land of Israel. So he didn't strike them down. He fed them bread and water. What's a picture of bread? The word of Yah. What's a picture of water? The spirit of Yah. So instead of striking them down, he fed them bread and water, and then they never again came back on raids into the land of Israel. Live by the sword, die by the sword, right? Does it start to make sense now? Ezekiel 37, just to wrap this up. And the hand of Yehovah was upon me, and he brought me out in the spirit of Yehovah and set me down in the middle of the valley, and it was full of bones. And he led me among them, and behold, there were very very many on the surface of the valley, and behold, they were very dry. Dry water, yeah. And he said, and he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, Oh, Yehovah Elohim Adonai, you know. And they said to me, Prophesy over these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of Yehovah. Thus says Adonai Yehovah to these bones, Behold, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. I will lay sinews upon you, and the flesh shall come up upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you shall live. And you shall know that I am Yehovah. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and I prophesied that there was, and as I prophesied, there was a sound, and behold, a rattling. And these bones came together, bone to its bone. And I looked, and behold, there was sinews on them, and the flesh had come upon them, and the skin had covering on them, and there was no breath in, but there was no breath in them. And he said to me, Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, son of man, and say to the breath, Thus says Adonai Yehovah, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe on these slain so that they may live. So I prophesied, and as he commanded me, and the breath came upon them, and they lived and stood on their feet, an exceedingly great army. And he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, Our bones are dried up, and our hope is lost. We are indeed cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, Thus says Adonai Yehovah, Behold, I will open your graves and raise you from your graves, O my people, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am Yehovah, and I will open your graves, when I open your graves and raise you from your graves, O my people. And I will put my spirit within you, and you shall live. And I will place you in your own land, and you shall know that I am Yehovah, and I have spoken, I will do it, declares Yehovah. The word of Yehovah came to me, Son of man, take a stick and write on it for Judah and for the people of Israel associated with him, Judah. Take another stick and write on it for Joseph and the stick of Ephraim and those of the house of Israel associated with him. And join them to one another into one stick, that they may be one in your hand. And when your people say to you, Will you not tell us what you mean by these? Say to him, Thus says Adonai Yehovah, Behold, I am about to take this stick of Joseph that is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel associated with him, and I will join it to the stick of Judah. Ephraim is the lost tribes that are scattered amongst the nations, okay? Ephraim is the lost sheep of the house of Israel, okay? Yeshua came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Yeah. He's going to join that stick with the stick of Judah. They will become one in his hand with one king above them. Okay. I will make them one stick, and they will be one in my hand. When the sticks on which you write are in your hand before their eyes, and then say to them, Thus says Adonai Yehovah, Behold, from the nations among which they have gone, and I will gather them from all around and bring them to their own land. I will make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king over them, and they shall no longer be two nations, no longer divided into two kingdoms. They shall not defile themselves any more with their idols and their detestable things, or with any of their transgressions. What do you transgress? Transgression of the law. Transgressing is transgressing the law, okay? So the law is not done away with. The debt has been paid, okay? Transgressing the law is sinning, okay? They shall not defile themselves anymore with their idols and detestable things, or with any of their transgressions. But I will save them from all their backslidings in which they have sinned, and I will cleanse them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God. My servant David shall be king over them. Okay, remember in the New Testament where people follow Yeshua around and they say, Son of David, Son of David, Son of David, because he is the branch from Jesse, the shoot, the branch from Jesse, line of David, okay? And that's why they call him son of David. Okay. So he's the servant branch from the line of David. If you want to look that up, it's Isaiah 11:1. Okay. My servant David shall be king over them, and they shall have one shepherd, and they shall walk in my rules and be careful to obey my statutes. So is the law done away with, or are we having it written on our heart so that we walk in his rules and obey his statutes? They shall dwell in the land that I gave to my servant Jacob, where your fathers lived. They and their children and their children's children shall dwell there forever. And David, my servant, shall be their prince forever. I will make a covenant of peace with them, and it shall be an everlasting covenant with them, and I shall set them in their land and multiply them, and I will set my sanctuary in their midst forevermore. My dwelling place shall be with them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Then all the nations will know that I am Jehovah, who sanctifies Israel, when my sanctuary is in their midst forevermore. Okay, now if you keep reading to 38 and 39, that is the war of Gog and Magog, okay? And I think we're right on the cusp of a lot of this, okay? Because you can see all these Christians that were lukewarm and, walking not in the commandments are starting to walk in the commandments. That is the Ezekiel 37 prophecy happening. We've got Christians going to Israel for the feasts. We've got Christians, believers in Yeshua, keeping the commandments of Yah, okay? That is Ezekiel 37, the two branches happening, okay? And it's unfolding right before our eyes. So the next thing that would start to happen is the war of Gog and Magog, which is described in Ezekiel 38. So you should definitely check that out. All right. Should definitely check that out. And I'm going to stop the recording now.